All right, welcome back. It's Annette. So let's talk about whether Amtrak was worth it for our trip from Chicago to Memphis to New Orleans. Because for three people, we paid about $1,700 total, 566 per person, and for that price, we booked two roomettes for the journey. So in this video, I want to break down what we paid for, what the experience was like, what comes with a roomette, and whether I think it was worth the money. Now, first, let's talk about the setup. There were three of us, so instead of trying to squeeze everybody into one space like a bedroom, we booked two roomettes just so we had a little bit to move around. That gave us a little more flexibility, a little more breathing room, and honestly, for an overnight train ride, I do think that matters. Comfort. Because this was not just a quick daytime trip. The first part of the ride from Chicago to Memphis was overnight. We left Chicago at about 8 p.m. and arrived in Memphis around 6 a.m. So that first leg was about 10 hours. And that is really a ride of get on the train, get settled, have dinner, go to sleep, wake up, and get off if you're stopping in Memphis. Then the second leg from Memphis to New Orleans was about 9 hours. You leave Memphis around 6 a.m. and get to New Orleans around 3 p.m., 3:30. So overall, this is a pretty long journey, which is why the roomette was very important to us. Now, let's talk about that Chicago departure experience because that actually set the tone. When you're traveling in a sleeper car, you do get access to the first class lounge area inside the Chicago Amtrak station. And I actually appreciated that because instead of just sitting in the main station waiting around with everybody else, you have a separate place to sit, relax, and get yourself together before boarding and enjoying your vacation. There were snacks, coffee, and just a calmer space overall. And I do think that matters, especially when you know you're about to be on a train for hours and hours. Of course, it's an experience, but it made the experience feel a little more organized, a little more comfortable, and a little more premium than just regular boarding. And let's face it, you paid for it. Now, once it was time to get on the train, that was when the trip started to feel real. We were getting ready to get in that culture ride. And I will say there is something about boarding an overnight train in Chicago at night. It feels different. The city is behind you, the train is starting to move, everything is dim, and you know that you're settling in for a whole different kind of travel experience. Something slow. Now, touring the train at night was interesting because everything has a quieter feel to it. You can walk through, get familiar with where things are, see how the sleeper car is set up, and kind of ease into the ride. Now, let's talk about the roomette. Roomette is small. I think that is important to say up front because when people hear private room, they may imagine more space than it actually is. And I want to be true here. It is compact. You have seating that converts for sleeping and it gives you privacy, which for an overnight trip is really the value. You're not in a coach seat trying to sleep sitting up. You can shut the door, shut the curtains, lock it, settle in, stretch out as much as the space allows, and just have your own area. And whoever's in that room with you, they can have their own area too. For us, having two roomettes made the trip make more sense. With three people, I would not have wanted to try to do that with less space. Now, does a roomette feel luxurious? Not really. Practical is the better word. Private is the better word. Let me think about that. Convenient is the better word. It gives you what you need to make a long train ride more manageable. And for an overnight route, that matters. One of the benefits of having the roomette is that meals are included, which helps when you're looking at the overall cost. So when we left Chicago that night, we were able to have dinner on the train. And honestly, that is part of the experience. You're leaving the city at night and you're on the train, you head to dinner, and it makes the trip feel a little more classic. And I'm a fan of I Love Lucy, so I love classic trips. And Amtrak is not just transportation. It feels like part of the travel itself. Then there's the practical side. If you're in the sleeper car, you also have access to the bathrooms and the shower. And that is important because on a longer train ride, being able to freshen up makes a real difference. We didn't use the shower, but we did use the restrooms. So there were three bathrooms in the sleeper cart area, and you also have the option to take a shower. That may not sound exciting until you are hours into a trip and realize how nice it is to actually reset. Because we got off and stayed in Memphis, we didn't need the shower. Now, between Chicago, Memphis, and then continuing on to New Orleans, it's really important. That second leg matters because once you get to Memphis, you have options. If Memphis is your stop, like it was for me, you get off. And if you want to stay in the city, we stayed at the Curio Hotel, which worked well for us. An amazing hotel. But if Memphis is not your final stop and you're continuing on, you can stay on the train and keep the journey going. You can sleep in when you get to Memphis. You don't have to wake up. And that is what makes this route kind of interesting. Chicago to Memphis feels like the overnight experience. Chicago at 8 p.m., dinner on the train, sleep, wake up, and Memphis at 6 a.m. Then Memphis to New Orleans feels more like the scenic daytime portion. After breakfast, you could settle in, look outside, have lunch, and actually spend time in the observation car during the day. It looks different than at night. And I think that is a big difference because the observation car at night is one experience when you're seeing the night lights roll by, but the observation car in the daytime lets you actually take in the route, watch the scenery change, and enjoy the ride in a different way. By the time you get to New Orleans around 3 p.m., it really feels like you've had a full travel experience, not just a transfer from one city to another like you would get on a flight. So, was $1,700 worth it? For three people with two roomettes, meals included, access to the first class lounge in Chicago overnight accommodations, bathroom and shower access, and the full experience from Chicago to Memphis to New Orleans, I would say it depends on what you're looking for. If you're comparing it strictly on price, some people are going to say that is high in it. And for $1,700, they're not wrong to ask questions. But if you're looking at this as part transportation, part hotel, part dining, and part travel experience, then the value starts to make more sense. Think about it, y'all. You're not just paying to get from point A to point B. You're paying for privacy, sleeping space, food, access to the sleeper perks, and the experience of seeing multiple cities this way. For me, the biggest benefit was not having to do that whole first stretch in coach overnight. That alone changed the trip for me and my family. Being able to board in Chicago, settle into the lounge, get on the train, have dinner, go to sleep, wake up for breakfast, and then continue the ride made it feel much smoother. And if you're someone who enjoys the experience of travel, not just the destination, then Amtrak like this really can be worth considering. Now, would I tell everybody to spend $1,700 on this exact setup? Not necessarily. But for three people and two roomettes, I do understand where the money went. The private space, the sleeper car benefits, the meals, the overnight comfort, and the full journey itself all factored into that price. So if you've been wondering what it actually costs to take Amtrak from Chicago to Memphis to New Orleans with Roomettes, that was our experience. And overall, it gave us a very different kind of trip than just flying. Let me know in the comments if you think $1,700 for three people and two roomettes sounds worth it for this route, or if you would rather just fly. And if you're thinking about Amtrak for a multi-city trip, especially overnight, I hope this gave you a real picture of what to expect. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.